Hi, it's Josh Goldberg here. Welcome back to our channel. Today I wanted to talk about a very important topic, which is on externalizing core content. And the reason why this is such an important topic is because it is a very common cause of relationship disruption and relationship failure. Okay, so core content is basically what's stored in a person's unconscious in the form of emotions. Okay, so the unconscious mind has no time, is not bound by time, so it has a perfect memory, whereas the conscious mind has a very kind of sparse memory. So surface content is behaviors and core content is stored emotions. So naturally, if someone throughout their life has had stress or abuse or neglect in their childhood, or if they've had other traumatic events throughout their life, whether it be from past relationships or from other stressful situations in life, these emotions can be stored in the unconscious if they're painful or if the person is not able to resolve them at that point in time. And unconscious emotions are very important because a person actually behaves and acts from their unconscious, not from their conscious. So if someone is storing emotions like fear, shame, guilt, anger, sadness, and obviously the list goes on, in a relationship, if these get triggered, they can cause behaviors that are coming from this unconscious emotion that could be very confusing or even hurtful to the other person. Okay, so these types of emotions can cause behaviors like projection, okay, which is when the emotion is unpleasant and powerful for the person, so they project it onto someone else. It can cause defensiveness, paranoia, irritability, intense jealousy, anger, anxiety, and so on. Okay, so core content is very important. Okay, people generally tend to avoid painful emotions or uncomfortable emotions, but it does pay a heavy price in relationships, and the reason is because surface behaviors can be very confusing if the other person in the relationship, whether it be a friend, a family member, or a spouse, doesn't understand the underlying core content which is driving these emotions. Okay, so there's two things that a person should do. Okay, in my opinion, everyone in the entire world should do this. Every adult should do this. The first thing that they should do is to do self-work. Okay, it's also known as shadow work, which means that the person should invest some time on a regular basis to either work with someone or to do some self-discovery as far as what their emotions are in their unconscious. Okay, the unconscious mind is not that difficult to access if the person is able to relax and to quieten down their conscious mind and to reflect inward a little bit. They can get in touch with their unconscious emotions. And this first step is obviously very important, because if a person is not aware of what emotions are stored in the unconscious for themselves, then it's not possible for another person to know what's going on. So if the person is getting defensive in relationships, or if they're becoming irritable in relationships, or if they're having strong feelings of anger or guilt or shame, or even very intense jealousy, okay, for a spouse or even a friend, okay, this is going to be very off-putting, and this is going to be very confusing and potentially even hurtful and disconnecting to the other person. Okay, and step number one is for the person to do self-discovery and to get to know themselves really well, and to get to know what emotions that they're storing in their unconscious from past events in their life. Could be from childhood, or it even can be from adulthood. So that's step one, is to do self-discovery. And then once the person has been doing shadow work and self-discovery on their unconscious mind, step 2 is to externalize this emotional material, this emotional content that's in the unconscious, with select people that the person trusts and that they're close with. Okay, so it could be family members. However, family members is not always the best idea. Close friends that are trustworthy and supportive are good people to externalize your core content to, so they can understand and support you better. A spouse is 100% necessary. In fact, it's critical that each person in the relationship understands their core content and shares it with the other person, okay? Because they have to deal with their core content every single day through their behaviors, right? If they're being triggered, they need to know how to best support and how to best act, and even just to understand what is going on with behaviors that could be rooted in past trauma or past abuse. It's very helpful for a spouse, because if a spouse is not aware of the core content that is driving particular behaviors, they will tend to take it personally, which will definitely burden a relationship quite significantly, and it's hurtful to the spouse. And if they would be informed and made aware of what the person is going through emotionally and where it comes from and so on, they can certainly adapt, understand, and be supportive rather than getting hurt and taking it personally, okay? So that is step 2, is sharing your core content with close people in your support network, and definitely your spouse. Okay, so what are the consequences of not sharing core content with a spouse and with your close friendship network? Okay, so first of all, as I said, the behaviors that are being driven by core content might be confusing or hurtful to other people, okay, if it's a mystery, okay, if you're becoming irritable very quickly, or if you're projecting, or you're becoming angry at the person, it could be hurtful. It's going to be confusing because they're not going to understand what this behavior is connected to, and they're probably going to take it personally. Very important for the spouse to understand what's going on so they don't get hurt, okay? Because if this is continuing, they could definitely develop resentment and depression, and just a low desire to be around someone that is acting through unconscious core content that might be unresolved abuse or unresolved trauma, okay? So in order to get the support and the understanding and the validation from close friends in your network, and definitely your spouse, I would highly encourage you to do the shadow work, to do the self-discovery, okay, which requires you being by yourself, okay, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and get a pen and paper out. And it's best to work with someone when doing unconscious shadow work, just because it does require sometimes a little bit of guidance and a little bit of encouragement to go to those emotional places in your unconscious that might be a little bit painful or uncomfortable. And then once you've done this self-discovery of your core content, I highly encourage that you share this material with those close to you that you spend time with, so that they can understand you better and they can support you better. We see a lot of relationships that are burdened and even fail due to partners not understanding the other person's core content, and they're dealing with behaviors that are confusing or they're hurtful. And if this goes on and on, eventually the person will want to get away from this, okay? So highly encourage that you do this. If you have any questions on core content and externalizing core content or shadow work and how to do this, please reach out to us. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.